What's going on, everybody? It's Dan. I'm back with another Moonshine Talking. Hope everyone's having a good day. Heading into the weekend. Hope you all have a good weekend. It's my weekend, so I'm pretty much doing the same old, same old. Got to work out in early. Woke up pretty early today, so I got a lot done before it's starting to get dark out here. Um, yeah, it's WrestleMania weekend. Can't say I'm heavily invested in WrestleMania this year. Uh, Main events don't really do too much for me. Most of the matches on there, they're just kind of like, meh, it's filler. I haven't been watching the current product in probably at this point 7, 8, maybe even 9 months. There's one match on there, AJ Styles and LA Knight. That should be pretty good. But beyond that, as far like I say, as far as the mains go, Roman Reigns, Rock, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins. Those are the big overs right now. They really don't do too much for me. The women's match I didn't really care about it either. So I'm sure it'll be kind of a meh show. But with The Rock involved, it'll probably get a lot of press. A lot of people be talking about it. I'm sure CM Punk will get involved because he's got to get himself back into the mix. And yeah, so by and large, don't really care about it. But that's the extent of my wrestling talk for this video. Actually, I heard a cool story today. Apparently, the Hillsborough County, Florida, I don't know if it's the town or the county commission or whoever it is, but whoever is in charge of making these decisions, they're deciding to commemorate the original site of Morrisound Studios with a plaque, considering it a historical site, which is really cool. I know Morrisound is selling on their website shirts where they have a list. I think it's like 25 or 30 of the top releases that came out of there in that era that everybody remembers. That really killer string of releases that came out of Morrisound, Scott Burns, and all that stuff. So that's really cool. I mean, I'll probably once that's all done, I'm gonna go down there and check it out. Probably take a picture in front of the place. I'm kind of kicking myself in the ass speaking of Morrisound because back in the day when I originally was living in Tampa to train at Malenko's, I never went there. I didn't have a car at the time, but I just, for whatever reason, I never went there. I never thought to convince my roommates, like, "Hey, bro, you want to do something cool? Let's go to this place," and then tell them along the way the history of the place, the music that came out of it, the bands that came out of it. I told a story. I don't know if I told it in. I don't know if I mentioned it to Revik from Morton Red privately in his comment section, or I mentioned it in a video. So if you already heard the story, my apologies. But Dean, one day he's at the school, he's training us, and he was telling us about his day, and he was telling us how, oh yeah, we had to go to this place and record a new theme song because he had just joined the Four Horsemen. They had done a whole angle where Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko had coerced Arn to put the Four Horsemen back together and get Ric Flair back. This was one of those times where Ric Flair was work shoot in and out of WCW, having a fall like a legit falling out with Eric Bischoff and all that, but eventually it culminated in bringing him back and this whole big power struggle between him and Bischoff. So he was telling me, yeah, we had to go to the studio and film this brand new theme for the Horsemen, and it's like, yeah, it's called Morrisound Studios. Like my eyes got wide as saucers. I was like, bro, really? And he's like, oh, you've heard of that? And I was like, Dean, that's one of they've released and produced so much killer stuff there. I said, you have no idea. And he thought like, oh, did you have you been there? Have you recorded stuff there? Because I was always wearing heavy metal T-shirts and stuff like that. But I was like, I'm not in a band or anything. It's just like, yeah, you have no idea. But and he didn't. He had no clue. He was into like Doobie Brothers and friggin' Bachman Turner Overdrive and all that sort of like 70s proggy stuff, things like that. And used to give me crap all the time about being similar to Chris Jericho as far as my musical tastes. And then I think I told the story before about my t-shirts and him calling me out on all the shirts that I would wear because I'd show up in body count and this and that and all sorts of other stuff, and Deicide and all sorts of other wonderful shirts. The Deicide one actually got me some heat with a couple of people there, but we won't get into that. But yeah, so that was kind of a cool story. So today I am going to do an album ranking, a little something different, but I've been planning this one for a little while. And it's going to be for the stoner rock band Kyuss. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Kyuss. I pretty much grew up on them. My first exposure to them was through this bad boy. I don't know if anyone has this or not, but it was a music sampler, and I'll show you the back so you can see who all was on it. Put focus in a second here. Come on, you know you want to. So if you can see that, probably not, but it's got Faster Pussycats, Siskin, a couple Kai's tunes, Exodus, some Warrant when they were trying to get out of the hairband stuff and more into heavier stuff. When you hear that famous story about Janie Lane talking about going into the record, into the record labels offices one day. They had a poster of Cherry Pie on the wall, and then a year later he goes in there and it's Alice in Chains Dirt, and he pretty much saw the writing on the wall, so this was their answer to try to keep up with the Joneses. And I don't think commercially it did so well, and that was pretty much marked the end of Warrant as far as a prominent band in hard rock and heavy metal. But yeah, I like Cherry Pie. There's some hard rock and stuff on there. I know I'm sure a lot of people here feel the same way about it, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, my best friend growing up, Jeff, he had this tape, and he's not a big hard rock heavy metal guy. He happened upon it. I'm not quite sure how. And knowing that I was into hard rock and heavy metal and all that, he just gave it to me. So I checked it out, and Caius was one of the first. It just blew me away. Like, to me, how heavy it was at the time, just the sound and the style. When I started getting into them, started picking up stuff over the years, CDs and whatnot. And yeah, they're by and large probably one of my favorite bands of all time. I love Kyuss. They're, like I say, I mentioned it, say it all the time. I'm into the stoner, doom, sludge, all that sort of stuff. But Kyuss is one of my favorites. So I'd probably put them at the very least in the top five of my favorite bands of all time. Uh, I don't know where I would rank them as far as that goes, but yeah, so that's that. But yeah, they started in 1987 as Katzenjammer, and then they quickly switched to Sons of Caius. They disbanded in '95. I'll get that out of the way. It's band is John Garcia. He was a vocalist. Josh Homme, who a lot of people know, he's a guitar player. Originally, it was a guy named Chris Cockrell was their original bass player. Then after the first demo EP, they had Nick Oliveri join the band, and he was there pretty much till the end. Then they had then Brent Bjork was their drummer, and he was pretty much with them until the end, other till probably the last album. Uh, yeah, and they're just kind of break down the members one by one. John Garcia's probably got one of the best voices in hard rock and heavy metal, in my opinion. He's got a very bluesy, very soulful, kind of raspy. It gives it a little bit of a little grit and some punch and bite to it. And every band that he's been in, whether it be Caius, Unita, Hermano, he was in Karma to Burn at one point. Slow Burn was another band that he was in after Caius broke up. He's always brought it. He always delivers the goods. And like I said, he's one of my favorite vocalists of that genre and in general. Josh Homme, everybody knows, after he left Caius, he formed Queens of the Stone Age. He's got another band, Them Crooked Vultures, with John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin, Dave Grohl. I forget who else is in the band. Da, 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 da. He was in Eagles of Death Metal. I'm really not really familiar with them. I've heard a few Them Crooked Vulture songs. It plays when we have Pandora Business at our job. So every once in a while, stuff like that will play, and it's all right. It's not great, but there's stuff I like a little better. Queens of the Stone Age, particularly the first three albums, I love those albums. They're fantastic hard rock, and if you're not familiar with them, I'd pick those up. Uh, Brent Bjork, he after leaving Caius, he was in a number of bands. Fu Manchu, he started his own solo project. Then he had Brent Bjork and the Bros. It's very good stoner stoner rock, psychedelic music, more hippy dippy kind of stuff. If you like that, which some of it I do, he's stellar at it. He's a fantastic musician. On top of drums, he plays guitar and bass. You know, he sings, and he pretty much does it all. And I would even say I'd go as far as to say all these guys are legends, as far as at the very least in this style of music. But definitely, I would rank them up there. But certainly in stoner rock, they definitely they deserve their props. Then later on, after Nick Oliveri, I should touch on him a little bit. He was there from 1990 to 92. And when he left in 92, he formed the band Mondo Generator. They put out an album, and this was after Kyuss had formally broken up, and he had all the guys on it in various forms. And that's Cocaine Rodeo is the name of it. And that's widely considered the last Kyuss recording that's ever been done. But he was in, he's got a solo project I think he does now. I heard a couple things that he did. It didn't really sit with me too well. I know that he's had some controversy, like domestic violence issues and stuff like that. But you know, I don't know what the deal is there. I just it was something I read, and I know at one point I think it kind of derailed, at least partially, them reuniting. But that's neither here nor there. And then later on, when he left the band, they got Scott Reeder, who was in the Obsessed at the time. And as you know, Obsessed is one of my favorite bands on the planet. And he's a killer bass player. A lot of people remember him. He was in some kind of monster where he auditioned for Metallica, and that was after Kyuss had broken up as well. And he also, I didn't know this, but he auditioned for Tool after Kyuss broke up. Didn't get either gigs. He produced a lot of albums. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit through my notes to point out some of the stuff that he was involved with. He helped produce Lunar Womb by the Obsessed. He joined back up with them. He linked back up with them after Kyuss broke up. Produced Orange Goblin, Sun O, a few other bands, and he was also in. I want to say he was in Unita with John Garcia, and he's in another band that the name escapes me right now. But yeah, I mean they all stayed fairly busy, and I'm sure they're still fairly busy to this day, I should say. Probably half the time whenever they're asked about music, it's trying to parry off any questions about a Kyuss reunion because none of them at this point really seem too interested. And then when Brant Bjork left the band, a gentleman by the name of Alfredo Hernandez, he joined. He was there for the last year, which I don't even know if he made it a full year or not because after their last album was recorded, they pretty much like a few months after that they broke up and that was they were donezo and that was that. But yeah, so that's pretty much the backstory on Kyuss. And now I'll get into the albums. They had five releases altogether. One was their EP demo that came out in '89. Then in September '91, they came out with their first full length Wretch. Blues for the Red Sun was their second full length. That came out June '92. June of 1994, excuse me. Welcome to Sky Valley came out. And then finally in July of '95, And the Circus Leaves Town, which was aptly named. That came out, and like I said, a few months later, after that, they pretty much broke up. I think at least one or two of them was not wanting to tour, and they were all having when they were touring, they were having personal issues, and I think everyone was drifting apart. I think Josh Homme wanted to move on as far as I probably figured that he wanted to expand the sound of the band, and they probably figured, well, that's not what we do. You know, that's not really falling in with our signature sound. So he went formed Queens of the Stone Age, which in its own right's a killer band. Like I say, first three I have and listened to. I really haven't listened to too much after that. Some of it's all right that I've heard, little singles here and there, but beyond that, I really just I fell out of touch with them quite a long time ago. But those first three, they're fantastic, especially the debut and songs for the death songs for the deaf. They're tremendous, and I highly recommend those. Give me a second here. So yeah, as far as the albums themselves, my rankings, and then I'll go into some of the songs from each album. I would rank number five is Wretch. It was it's good. Like I love all their stuff, like I say, but you know, if you're ranking stuff, you have to go, you have to rank it, you know, in some order, and something's got to be last. What I didn't like about Wretch is the fact that if you hear Sons of Kyuss, a lot of the albums, a lot of the same songs. Uh, a few of the songs that were on it, I felt like had they had they either made Sons of Kyuss their full length debut, scratched a couple of songs that they did on Wretch, and added a couple of the ones from Sons of Kyuss, that would have been a near perfect album because there was some stuff on the debut full length that were like, eh, and then a lot of stuff on Sons of Kyuss, which is just fantastic. Just great bluesy, dirty, nasty stoner riffage, Sabbathian, if you will. A lot of, you know, through all these releases, John Garcia's voice is tremendous. Again, just that dirty, raspy, but at the same time soulful and melodic is just they were the perfect fit for it. They all really like they complemented each other. That's the word I was dancing around looking for. Um, so that was that one. As far as the songs on there that were good, Black Widow, Big Bikes. Big Bikes, there's actually a funny story to that, as sometimes there is with me. When I was training at Malenko's, I shared an apartment with with three other guys. There's four of us there, and I didn't have a lot of my music down here with me when I was here the first time, and but I had this, and I was playing it for the fellas, and we were listening to it, and it was one of those classic mishaps where you don't really understand, you misread the lyrics or you hear them wrong. So there's a line in it where it's I want some pussy from a bad bitch on a big bike, yeah. And in my stupid brain at the time, I thought it was a fat bitch on a big bike. So the fellows, my roommates, they would give me shit about it all the time. And it was very funny. To this day, it's very funny. And I'm sure if I got them all together today, they would all still give me grief about it. But it was very funny. I laughed about it. And then stage three closes out the album, and it's an instrumental, and it's killer. It really highlights Brant Bjork's drumming. This is very intense. He's not a very technical player, but at the same time, his intensity and just the way he fills in just his rhythms, the way he stays in the pocket and really kind of complements sets the foundation for a lot of the songs, a lot of the riffs over top of it. The the bass being used as almost a second guitar for melodies and alternating rhythms and stuff like that. It's great. Again, they fit well together. It was just it was a magical band, in my opinion. Uh, but yeah, that was Wretch. Then after that, I would say it would be Welcome to Sky Valley. And again, that was a good one. For me, it's kind of hard to rank these a little bit, but not quite. As far as the best songs on there, Conan Troutman, that's a good solid pounding rocker. Uh, Demon Cleaner, I believe they did a video for that. Tool actually covered it at one point. That's just a very it's mellow and the way that Garcia sings it, it's got like almost these diabolic undertones, and it's just a very and Homie's tone, his use of bends and taps with his rhythms and his riffs, they're top notch. And it adds like this like a trippy layer to the song, which again, word I'll go back to is that it really everything complements itself very well. And then my favorite song is Gardenia. That's the opener. That's a classic. I mean, if you like Kyuss, you're probably familiar with Gardenia. The riff that starts the song is off the chain, good, and so fuzzy and heavy, and the way the bass comes in, It's stellar. I love that song. But yeah, it was just there were parts of the album that were a little lackluster, and the way that the album was mixed or engineered, however you want to say it, it was in like three passages, so you would get three or four songs in the like almost like the first, second, and third act, which, if you're just trying to listen to things singularly, individually, that's kind of a pain in the ass to deal with. But, it is what it is. And they had an idea, a vision for how the album should play out, and that's how it played out. It wouldn't have been my choice, but I'm not in the band, so I can't say anything. I just enjoy the music. Then after that, I would say Blues for the Red Sun. I know there's some people that think that that one is probably their best album to date, or of all time. It's really really good. It is. Green Machine, Ride. Those are the two songs on the cassette that I. Those are two of the songs I first heard of Kyuss. Uh, Thumb is a really good one. It's got a nice airy fun riff, and then it goes to chuggy, very bottom heavy riffage, and then Thong Song. That's a fun one. I think they had a video for that as well. A very very dynamic song, the way it sets up, and then when it goes to the chorus, it really kicks in overdrive. Uh, really showcases Garcia's vocal stylings. Um, but yeah, it's that's that album, and that's my number three. My number two is Sons of Caius, their first one. Like I said, if they would have put together a few of the songs that didn't make it onto the first full length, and they cut out a couple of the ones that did, that would have been a near perfect album. Because like again, they have Black Widow. Black Widow's on it. Cats and Jammers, another one that's on it. Uh, Isolation, Desolation, that's on both of them. But the two that didn't make it onto the first album on Wretch were Window of Souls and King. And both, I'm not sure if they're real huge Samhain fans or early Danzig fans, but there's so many similarities to the Samhain or Samhain and early Danzig, particularly that first album, that debut. Just the real nasty, dirty, bluesy riffs that go on in both of these songs. And again, Garcia's vocals are real bluesy and nasty, and it's always superb is what I'll say. So I would have loved to have seen those two songs, Window of Souls and King, wind up on Wretch, but that's not how it worked out. I don't really know the backstory why they didn't, but yeah, that was that. But that's my number two, and then my number one is their last one, "And the Circus Leaves Town." That is a damn near perfect album. I can't really. There's so much good on it. Like the whole album is fantastic. I wrote down a few of the songs. Uh, Size Queen, Phototropic, Gloria Lewis, Spaceship Landing. Spaceship Landing's a good closer. It's just ferocious and pounding the whole time. Gloria Lewis, it's got a sleazy, almost burlesque feel to the song, almost like you could see some old school, like freaking what's her name? Can't think of Sally something, the burlesque dancer. Or, no, Gypsy Rosalie. That's who I think I'm thinking of. There probably is a Sally somewhere in those old school burlesque, like 30s, 40s hoochie coochie bars or what have you. But yeah, Phototropic. It starts out real slow burning, kind of goes into this real tasteful melody, and then the riffs throughout it as the vocals kick in are very triumphant. It's a very very positive, uplifting song. Size Queen's fantastic. Just like the whole album is. It was hard for me to point out various songs that I could really point out as probably the best, but that's trying to do my best in doing that. But the whole album is killer. It's just there's all killer, no filler on that one. It's a shame that they broke up after that, but I guess you leave them wanting more is always a good thing than having overstaying your welcome. So, so yeah, that was that. As far as a side note, they also put out, I can't remember when they put it out when it was released, but they did a split with Queens of the Stone Age where Caius did a cover of Into the Void. and by Sabbath, and that's a really good cover. Enjoyed that a lot. And then yeah, then everyone went their separate ways. They started doing their own thing. At one point, they all tried to get together, minus Josh Homme, because he has apparently no interest in doing Kyuss again. Uh, don't really know the full reason behind that. Then at one point, John Garcia, Brent Bjork, Nick Oliveri, they all tried to get together and do something. And then they even got Scott Reeder involved. He was on board at one point, but then he ended up, for whatever reason, the ego clashes and probably money and stuff like that. Then before you knew it, they were suing each other, but unfortunately, a lot of these bands do. And Scott Reeder's on Homie's side, and the other three are together. And then at one point, Nick Oliveri was kind of riding the fence between the two camps. And then he has all of his personal problems going on, and that kind of threw a monkey wrench into the plans. So eventually, it got to the point where they had to call themselves Kyuss Lives. They had like a little short return, short reunion. I think they were gonna record some stuff, and I don't really recall if any of that actually happened. But yeah, that is the long and short of Kyuss. One of my favorite bands of all time. Uh, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll probably do in the future. I'll do a few more album rankings. I got a couple other bands that I want to try to do a compendium, like a basically a video essay of all their stuff that they've done. Like probably going to do one on Trouble at some point. Probably somewhere down the line. Cannibal Corpse, of course. As far as some of my other bands, at one point I want to do one for Clutch. Clutch is another one of my favorite bands of all time. And a few others. There's a few others I have in mind, kicking around the back of my head. Probably Goat Whore. At some point, I'm going to do one on them. Uh, then there's a couple other bands that I'm really starting to get into that I'm still kind of a noob to, still a newbie in listening to them, but really enjoying a lot of their stuff. Uh, and maybe I'll go into them deeper into their discography and then be able to kind of give some sort of half-assed informed opinion about what I liked about all their albums and the way the sound evolved and all that. But that's some of my ideas. Actually, I got some album rankings I'm gonna be doing pretty soon. I'm just waiting on some of the stuff I'm waiting for them to get mailed to me. And then once I get those shipped to me, then I'm gonna do that. I got one for probably the newest one I'm gonna do, upcoming is sludge band Iron Monkey. They're a UK sludge band. They just put out a new album. I forgot that they were putting one out, and then I listened to a couple songs on it. I was like, holy shit, this is freaking awesome. And so I went and instantly ordered that. So I'm waiting on that, and I'm going to do a review on that. Uh, Waiting on High on Fire. That's coming in. Big Sleep fan. So I love Matt Pike's work. So I'm real excited to the couple songs I've heard off of that. They're top notch. I'm very excited to hear that and listen to the whole thing and then do a review on it and kind of half-ass promote it on my channel. So yeah, just keep checking back with me. I'll have stuff coming up. Probably got another video I'll be doing this week, and I think it's probably gonna be a collection update and some of the stuff I picked up this month that I haven't shown off. And yeah, that's it. So in the meantime, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact, and don't forget to breathe. Hope everyone has a good weekend, and I will catch you soon. Later.